A mysterious plague swept through the packs, wiping out every last she-wolf. To continue their bloodline, these ancient predators turned to the human world, bringing with them centuries of wealth and power. They struck a pact sealed in blood, with the most powerful human families. Every summer solstice, the finest daughter would be chosen as a breeding mother, destined to mate with a wolf. And the one breeding mother who could birth a female hybrid would be crowned, becoming the queen of both the wolf and human worlds. In my last life, my sister Selena, the family favorite, she chose the alpha of the warmest, richest territory. And me? I was the family's sacrificial lamb, thrown to Colton, the most brutal alpha of the frozen wastes. But who could have guessed my sister's life of warmth and riches was all a lie? Her alpha treated her like a disposable toy. She froze to death in a damp cellar, forced to listen to the fireworks that celebrated my coronation. Yes, I successfully gave birth to a girl. But those brilliant fireworks were also my funeral pyre. I died on that cold throne. Now I'm alive again. We're back on the day of the choosing. I choose Alpha Colton of the frozen wastes. The voice belonged to my sister Selena. I slowly opened my eyes. Seeing the undisguised triumph and cold calculation in her eyes, I knew she was reborn too. But she didn't know this time. She would be the one to fall into the very hell I just clawed my way out of. In my last life, my mate craved one thing: the Alpha King's throne. He used a dark witch's potions, twisted my body, forcing it to carry the first hybrid she-wolf. I gave him a daughter, but the poison rotted me from the inside out. I died on my coronation day. I opened my eyes. I was back. The day the alphas chose their breeding mothers from the human world. I gasped for air, the ghost of my own death still choking me. A sharp voice cut through the haze. I choose Alpha Colton. My sister Selena. In our last life, she chose the wealthy Alpha Baton without a second thought. I saw the ambition in her eyes. The hunger. I knew. She was back too. She rushed to choose Colton, all because she died before me. My poor sister has no idea at all what has happened to me. Are you mad, Selena? Mother's voice was a frantic whisper. Colton's lands are a frozen hellscape. You can't throw your life away. We already have a sacrifice. Ronnie is enough. Same words as last time. The same casual dismissal. In their eyes, I was always disposable. The one who was just enough. I don't want Baton. He'll never be Alpha King. Only Colton can bring our family glory. Please, mother, let me go. Selena whined, collapsing into our mother's arms. A cold laugh escaped my lips. She thought marrying Colton meant birthing a female hybrid. That she would be queen. So naive. Glory. The memories flooded back. Colton's nightly rituals. The glint of the silver needle. The poison burning through my veins. My body withered while the child inside me thrived, fed on pure evil. I gave him the first she-wolf in a century. I remember my coronation. The alphas bowed before me. Then I coughed up blood and collapsed on my throne. A queen for only a moment. No. I stood up, my voice shaking but firm. I refuse. I won't choose any alpha. These wolf alphas see us human breeding mothers as nothing more than cattle anyway. After a death that horrific, all I want is to escape. Mother's face turned ugly in an instant. Ronnie, how dare you? Ronnie, Selena said, a flash of triumph in her eyes as she faked a concerned tone. This is our family's duty. Shut up. I snapped. If you want to leap into that fire pit, be my guest. But you are not dragging me down with you. Insolence. Utter insolence. The family's grand elder coughed, his body shaking with rage. This is not your choice. Since Selena is willing to fight for the family's glory, you must take what is left. What choice is left? I asked coldly. The elders looked at each other. The Shadowclaw pack. A voice said from the corner. Their alpha Huxley is still without a mate. The entire hall fell deathly silent. Shadowclaw. The pack whispered to be cursed. Their people can't complete their shift, forever trapped in a twisted state between man and beast. They're seen as deformed monsters by all other wolves. I'd rather die. I turned to run, but two tall guards grabbed me in an instant. The elder gave a cold wave of his hand. Knock her out. Send her over. The wealth we get in return will keep our family prosperous for another decade. Something hard and cold struck the back of my neck. As my vision faded to black, the last thing I heard was Selena's fake, sweet voice. "Oh Ronnie, do take care of yourself." When I woke up, I was in the back of a rickety, broken-down carriage. The air stank of sulfur and desolation. I'd been thrown out like trash at the border of the Shadowclaw Pack's territory. The place was even bleaker than the stories. Bare rock, twisted dead trees. Every gust of wind sounded like a monster's howl. The horrifying rumors about this pack swirled in my head. They drank blood and ate raw flesh. Brutal and merciless. Maybe my fate here would be even worse than my last life. Then what was the point of being reborn? The memory of the potions eating me alive, combined with the horror of this place, made it hard to breathe. Fear wrapped around my heart like vines. No, I can't just stay here and wait to die. There's still time. Under the cover of night, I stumbled out of the crumbling stone hut where I was hiding and ran for the deep woods. But I only got a few steps before a colossal shadow fell from the sky, swallowing me whole. He towered over me like a mountain, at least 7 feet tall. Half man, half beast. Just like the legends said. A monster. In the dark, his molten gold eyes locked onto me, filled with the predatory pressure of a hunter sizing up its prey. Trying to run? His voice was a low, rough growl that vibrated through my bones. My legs turned to jelly. I took half a step back, and his huge hand flashed out, closing with terrifying precision around my slender neck. I'm dead. That's the only thought in my head. This will be worse than dying at Colton's hands. Sheer terror froze me solid. I forgot to even breathe. He wasn't squeezing, but I could feel the sharp tips of his claws prick the skin over my pulse. A silent promise of the absolute power he held over my life. He leaned down, his hot, feral breath washing over my face. "Nothing that belongs to me," he rumbled, "has ever escaped." As I squeezed my eyes shut, expecting to be torn apart, my eyes flew open again. I saw it. The mark on the inside of his wrist. 3 interlocking crescents, encircled by ancient runes. That mark, I've seen it before. At my damned coronation in my past life. As I was dying, writhing in agony from the dark potions, a hand reached out from the crowd and pressed a vial into mine. A life-saving potion. That potion was the only reason I lived long enough to see my daughter born. Back then, I only caught a fleeting glimpse of the very same mark on my savior's wrist. The monster everyone feared was the stranger who had shown me a moment of mercy in my darkest hour. And now in this life he was my mate. Alpha Huxley. Huxley seemed to freeze for a second. But just as quickly, the flicker of emotion in his molten gold eyes vanished, replaced by an icy indifference to everything. His grip on my neck vanished, only to be replaced by a hard hand clamping around my arm. He pulled me into a stone hut that looked ready to collapse. "Stay." He bit out the single word, then turned and disappeared into the night, as if I were nothing more than a troublesome package. I expected this hut to be a living hell. I was wrong. A fire pit in the center of the room chased away every bit of the chill. The walls were carved with ancient totems I didn't recognize. In the corner, a bed of animal furs looked impossibly clean. Outside was a wasteland. Inside was a warm home. For the first time since my rebirth, the tight knot of fear in my chest loosened just a little. A few days later, an invitation arrived. The welcoming feast. All alphas were expected to attend with their new mates, to show off their prizes. Huxley didn't even glance at it, tossing the gold-leafed invitation straight into the fire. "We're going." I snatched it back from the flames. His golden eyes flicked to me, a hint of curiosity in them. I needed to go. I needed to see Selena with my own eyes. To watch my foolish sister walk so proudly toward her own destruction. At the feast, Colton and Selena were the center of attention. The moment Huxley and I appeared, we became the main attraction for a different reason. A joke. Huxley ignored the scornful looks, walking directly to the darkest corner of the hall to lean against the wall. I'd just picked up a glass of wine, when Selena glided over. "Well, look what the cat dragged in." Selena's voice cut through the hall. She wore a gown of ice blue silk, studded with rare ice crystals, each one worth a fortune. custom made by Colton to show off his new prize. I wore a simple black coat, the only decent thing I'd brought from home. I thought you'd be too ashamed to come, Selena said, walking toward me. She raised her voice so everyone could hear. After all, being chosen by a pack of monsters must be humiliating, right? The werewolves around us began to whisper. I glanced at her face. The makeup couldn't hide the dark shadows under her eyes, or the pale line of her lips. Colton had already started. You don't look well, Selena, I said quietly. Her smile faltered for a second. I'm just so excited. Colton says I'll be pregnant soon. Our child will rule all the packs. Rule? I scoffed. Or be ruled. You're just jealous. Selena smugly stroked her flat stomach, as if a future queen was already there. Poor Ronnie, living in the wastes with a bunch of beasts. You'll probably never even get pregnant. The crowd snickered openly. The same werewolf nobles who once flattered my family now looked at me like I was a clown. At least I started to argue, but she cut me off. At least you what? At least you're alive. Selena's smile turned venomous. Sometimes, Ronnie, being alive is a fate worse than death. Especially for trash that's been thrown out. A monster's plaything. And where is your monster? What, too ashamed to show his face so? He left you all alone. Seeing that I wasn't responding, Selena grew bolder. She leaned in close, her voice a venomous whisper. Admit it, Ronnie. You're so jealous you could scream. Everything you have now is just my leftover trash. I looked at her smug, gloating face and suddenly, a slow smile spread across my lips. I met her eyes and said, my voice low and clear. Enjoying my leftovers, sister? The smile on Selena's face shattered. What did you just say? She screeched, like a cat whose tail has been stepped on. She lunged, her hand grabbing my arm, her nails digging into my flesh. In the blink of an eye, the shadow from the corner was standing in front of me. Huxley. He didn't even glance at Selena. He simply extended 2 fingers, and as if plucking the wings off a fly, his fingers closed around her wrist like a steel trap. Ah! Selena screamed in pain, her hand flying off me. Let go! You filthy monster! She shrieked, her voice a cocktail of shock and rage. You and your whole cursed pack belong in a gutter to rot. Huxley was completely unfazed by her insults. Not a single ripple of emotion crossed his face or his molten gold eyes. He didn't care. But I did. I took a sharp step forward, planting myself in front of Huxley. I faced Selena's twisted expression, my voice colder than hers. Shut your mouth. Don't you dare talk about him like that. Selena was stunned speechless, probably shocked that I would defend this monster. And I could feel it clearly. The statue-like body behind me went completely still. Just then Colton arrived, surrounded by a crowd of admirers. He moved like a king, basking in their flattery. Colton, it looks like the title of Alpha King is yours for the taking. One alpha toasted, sucking up. None of us can compete with your methods. Colton swirled the wine in his glass, a smirk on his face. The throne has always belonged to those who are willing to do whatever it takes. His gaze swept the room, finally landing on us. He strolled over, completely ignoring Huxley and me, and gently pulled a shaken Selena into his arms. His hand rested on her waist, like he was displaying a perfect masterpiece. My Luna, he murmured, his tone gentle but his eyes full of menace. Your destiny is to be a queen. Why waste your time on losers and monsters? Losers and monsters. The words were aimed at us like daggers. With Colton backing her up, Selena's arrogance soared. She nestled against him, as if she were already on the throne. She looked at me, her eyes dripping with contempt and victory. Did you hear that, Ronnie? Some people are destined to stand at the top of the world. And you? You and your monster belong in a dark corner, waiting to die. I'm done with this pathetic circus. Let's go, I said to Huxley. He gave me a long, deep look. There was something in it I couldn't quite read. Then he nodded. As we walked through the forest, Huxley suddenly spoke. I'm giving you a choice. Leave or stay. On a cliff's edge, looking down at his pack's home in the valley below, I expected to see crumbling huts and starving people. The sight stunned me. Neat stone houses lined the hillside. A grand hall stood in the center, surrounded by lush gardens. Pack members worked in the fields. Children played by a stream. This wasn't an abandoned wasteland. It was a hidden paradise. The real Shadowclaw territory. You've been hiding this? The strong don't need to prove anything. Huxley leaped from the cliff, landing solidly on a rock below. I followed behind him, stumbling. He was there in a heartbeat. A large hand shot out, wrapping around my waist to steady me. Even through my clothes, I could feel the heat of his body. Careful, he murmured, his voice low in my ear. I looked up at his face. Up close, his half-wolf features weren't terrifying. There was a wild charm to them. I can take care of myself, I said. I know. He let go, but stayed close as we walked. But I want to. My heart skipped a beat. The pack was kind to me. No scornful looks. No malicious gossip. The old women taught me to cook their local dishes. The young mothers shared tips on raising children. Luna, will you be joining the hunt? A young pack member asked. The hunt? It's tradition, Huxley said, walking over with a silver bow in his hand. Mates hunt together, to prove their trust in each other. I took the bow, feeling its weight. I've never hunted before. I'll teach you. The forest was more dangerous than I imagined. Huge shadows moved through the treetops. The howls of beasts echoed in the distance. Stay quiet, Huxley led the way, his every move filled with a deadly grace. The boar is just ahead. I raised my bow, aiming for the wild boar rooting in the brush. But just as I was about to shoot, a massive silver wolf burst from the side. It wasn't after the boar. It was after me. I cried out, losing my balance and falling. The wolf lunged, its jaws wide open. Ronnie! In the next second, Huxley was in front of me. In a blur of motion he shifted. A giant wolf, twice the size of the attacker. Gray-black fur, golden eyes, and an overwhelming aura of power. He swatted the silver wolf with one paw, shattering its spine and sending it flying. The wolf let out a dying howl, and vanished into the forest. Huxley turned. He didn't shift back right away. The giant gray-black wolf walked heavily toward me. He lowered his massive wolf head, nudging my cheek gently with his wet nose, checking if I was okay. The rage in his golden eyes was gone, replaced by a focused, clumsy tenderness. Hurt. His voice was a low rumble, even in his wolf form. No. I stared at him, my heart pounding. Then I reached out and touched the coarse fur on his nose. His golden eyes flickered. The huge wolfish body began to shrink under the moonlight. He shifted back into his tall, powerful half-human form. He stood over me, still radiating that animalistic pressure. You're not afraid of me? No. I got to my feet and stood on my toes, leaning closer. I'm afraid of losing this. His breathing hitched. His golden eyes burned with a suppressed hunger. Ronnie, are you sure? Once we start, there's no turning back. I'm sure. He kissed me. The kiss was savage, searing, a raw, undeniable claim. He nipped at my lips with his teeth. His tongue, rough and hot like a wild animal's, pried my mouth open. His arms were like steel bands, locking me against him. I could feel the rippling muscle and hot blood beneath his half-human skin. This wasn't a human's kiss. It was a beast marking his territory. As we came together in the moonlit forest, I finally understood what a true union was. Not a cold ritual, not a painful bargain, but the soul and body's most primal surrender and possession. The power roiling inside him could have torn me apart, but he held it back with sheer will. It became a searing tenderness instead, branding me deep in my soul. My queen, he growled, his voice thick with reverence. My fate. I stayed. Without a doubt. Whatever happened this time, I wouldn't be a sacrifice for an alpha king. 3 months later, a piece of news rocked the werewolf world. The Icefang Pack's Luna is pregnant. Messengers ran from pack to pack, their voices trembling with excitement. Colton threw a massive party to celebrate, inviting representatives from every pack. Huxley and I received an invitation. We're not going. Huxley crushed the invitation in his fist. No, said, smoothing down the simple dress Huxley had made for me. We're going. I want to see just how my poor sister is doing. The Icefang Hall was glittering with lights. Selena sat on the main throne. one hand on her slightly swollen belly, a triumphant smile on her face. But I saw her weakness immediately. No amount of makeup could hide the dark circles under her eyes or the deathly pale of her lips. Colton was pumping her full of stimulants to fake her health. "Ronnie," she saw me and stood up. "You actually came. Come see, I'm going to be a mother." She thrust her belly forward, her eyes gleaming with triumph. She walked up to me, her gaze sweeping dismissively over my flat stomach. Then she glanced at Huxley beside me. "Can you smell that, Ronnie?" she said, taking a dramatic breath. "It's the smell of life. The smell of power. And all I smell on you is the dust of the wastes and the reek of a monster." A ripple of suppressed laughter went through the crowd. Elena's vanity swelled. Her smile grew more vicious, her voice louder. "Don't you worry though. When I'm crowned queen, I won't forget you. I'll grant you a respectable position. In the palace, you'll be in charge of cleaning up my daughters, the future queen's droppings." She let out a sharp, cackling laugh. "As for your monster," she sneered, pointing a disgusted finger at Huxley, "I might be merciful enough to give him the largest cage in the royal menagerie. It would be a novel amusement for my court, to see what a true freak of nature looks like." I fought the urge to gag. The moment she got close, I smelled it. The familiar, cloying scent of dark magic and decay. The smell of death. It was even stronger now. 6 months later, the news arrived. Selena had given birth. The Luna has given birth. A messenger burst into our territory, his voice trembling with excitement. "It's a female. The first female heir in a century." The news spread like wildfire. I stood on the watchtower of the Shadowclaw territory, looking toward the Frostfang pack. The celebratory fireworks were even more brilliant than the ones for me in my past life. Huxley came to stand beside me, taking my hand. "She did it." "Yes," I said softly, my voice filled with a complicated mix of emotions. "She did it. She successfully walked right into my old trap." It was the same for me. After the agonizing birth of my daughter, I was pushed to the pinnacle of glory. And then I withered away. Colton's dark rituals only produce one outcome, a female heir. It was a law he'd proven with countless lives. "Too bad for you, Selena. Your time is up." 3 days later, all the alphas gathered at the Moon Goddess Temple. It was the most magnificent ceremony in 100 years. The Moon Goddess's blessing for the newborn female. Selena sat beside Colton, holding the swaddled baby. Her face had a feverish, unnatural flush, but she couldn't hide her pride. The drugs they've given her made her seem energetic, but I knew. Her body was on the verge of collapse. "Witnesses," Colton announced, his voice booming. His eyes burned with the madness of a man about to rule the world. "Today we witness history. This child will change the destiny of the wolf world." Thunderous applause. Everyone stared at the baby with feverish devotion. "Now," the high priestess said, raising her scepter, "bring the daughter of the moon to the stone of truth, so the goddess may witness her purity and nobility." For a split second, I saw panic flash across Selena's face. But pride quickly replaced it. She thought this was the final test before she became queen. She looked at Colton, her eyes full of love and expectation. "Go on," Colton urged, a hint of impatience in his voice. Trembling, Selena carefully carried the baby toward the massive black stone at the center of the altar. The stone of truth, a relic left by the goddess herself. No lie can hide in its presence. She held the bundle high and placed it on the stone. Everyone held their breath. The moment the infant touched the stone, it didn't just glow. It erupted. A blinding, silver light exploded outwards. But this was no gentle blessing. This was a shriek of pure light, a violent repudiation. A light that burned away all lies. The magical shimmer concealing the infant's nature. The very illusion that marked her as female, shattered like glass. Before the horrified eyes of every pack, the female baby's true form was laid bare. "A boy," someone screamed. "It's a boy." The temple fell into a dead silence. Even I was stunned. How could Colton's ritual have failed? The alpha's adoration turned to fury. Their gazes were like knives cutting into Colton and Selena. To deceive the moon goddess, to deceive every pack, it was an unforgivable crime. No, that's not right, Selena stumbled back, clutching the baby. Something's wrong, this is impossible. Impossible? Colton's voice was a low, terrifying roar as he stalked toward her, his handsome face twisted into a mask of pure fury. You useless bitch, he snarled, his voice a venomous whip. You've made me a laughingstock in front of the entire world. He snatched the baby from her arms, his movements jerky and violent. A boy. A damned boy, he bellowed, his eyes bleeding to crimson. Do you have any idea what you've done? You've ruined everything. Colton, please, I don't know how this happened. Selena knelt on the floor. Maybe we can try again. Try again. Colton's laugh was pure madness. With that rotting corpse you call a body? Look at you. You can barely stand. My voice was a soft, cold whisper against the backdrop of the pandemonium. How tragic. She probably never knew the dark magic in that bracelet was feeding on her own life force with every use. Colton gave her the means to her own destruction. Colton was right. When the illusion shattered, Selena's true state was revealed. A withered face, dry thinning hair, and dull lifeless eyes. The dark ritual had sucked all the life out of her. Alphas. Colton turned to the crowd. I declare that this woman has deceived us all. She used wicked illusions to fake the child's gender. That's your illusion artifact. Selena struggled to her feet. You made me use it. Lies. Colton slapped her across the face. What would I know about your pathetic little tricks? Blood trickled from Selena's lip. She stared in disbelief at the man who had once showered her with affection. Colton, how could you? How could I? He sneered. I should be asking how you dared. You useless bitch. How dare you try to fool me with such a pathetic scheme? The watching alphas began to whisper. The Icefang pack is finished. The crime of deceiving the goddess is too great. Colton must answer for this. Hearing this, Colton's face twisted with fury. He knew his reputation was destroyed, and it was all because of this worthless woman. Before all alphas, I, Colton, alpha of the Icefang pack, hereby sever my mating bond with this woman. His voice boomed. Now take your bastard son and get the hell out of my sight. Selena was thrown out of the temple like trash. She stumbled in a daze, her eyes vacant with disbelief, muttering the same words over and over. Why? I chose him, just like she did. Why didn't I have a girl? This broken, pathetic creature was a far cry from the arrogant woman who had flaunted her pregnancy. I walked over to her, leaned close to her ear, and whispered. You should be thanking the gods it wasn't a girl. Otherwise, you would have died the moment they crowned you queen. Just like I did. Her eyes shot wide with horror. And in that instant, the realization hit her like a physical blow. I was reborn too. I turned my back on her, leaving her to her fate. She had reaped what she sowed. After watching the pathetic show, Huxley and I returned to our pack. That night, a frantic scream cut through the darkness. Ronnie, get out here. I sat up in bed. Outside my window, a ragged figure stumbled in the moonlight. Selena. Her hair was a mess, her face covered in fresh cuts. She clutched a crying baby to her chest. I know you're in there. She pounded on the door. You bitch. This is all your fault. Huxley wrapped his arms around me from behind. I'll make her leave. No. I threw on a robe. Let her in. I want to hear what she has to say. The moment the door opened, Selena burst in. She looked like a madwoman. Her eyes were sunken, her cheeks hollow. She was nothing but skin and bones. Look at what you've done to me. She pointed a trembling finger at her own face. I look like a corpse. And you? You're glowing. It was true. My months with the shadow claws had made my skin glow, my body healthy. What do you want, Selena? I want to know. She clutched her baby, her eyes burning with a crazed fire. What did you do in your last life? Why did you birth a daughter and I couldn't? I watched her quietly. Do you really want to know? Tell me. I embraced Colton's dark ritual. I said, my voice chillingly calm. Every night, he shot me up with those potions. My veins were scarred, riddled with holes from his silver needle. My body broke down day by day. Selena's eyes widened. Then why did you succeed? Because I died. I said with a cold smile. I successfully gave birth to our daughter, and I successfully died on the coronation throne. The dark ritual worked, but it also killed me. No, impossible, Selena staggered back. You're lying. You must have had another way. Another way? I walked toward her. Did you think that glory was free? Selena, the path you chose was the same dead end I walked. I don't believe you, she shrieked. There has to be another way. Tell me. Just then we heard footsteps outside. It was Mira, the pack's healer. Luna, you missed your wellness check. She walked in and froze when she saw Selena. Who is? My sister, I said. You can check me now. Mira had me sit, placing her hands on my wrist to feel my pulse. A few seconds later she looked at me, her eyes wide with shock. Luna, you're pregnant. The room fell silent. I was stunned. How long? About 2 months. Mira continued her examination. But it's strange, your body is incredibly healthy, your life force is strong. There's no sign of any catalytic potions. What does that mean? It means this is a completely natural conception. No artificial intervention. Mira was beaming. This is almost unheard of among the breeding mothers. I looked at Selena. Her face was ashen. No, impossible, she whispered. How could you be pregnant without the ritual? It's not fair. Just then, Huxley walked in. He had heard us. His golden eyes shone with pride and excitement. I knew it. He came to my side, stroking my cheek. I knew you were different. What do you mean? Ronnie. He sank to one knee before me, his eyes full of a worshipper's reverence. You never needed a ritual. Your bloodline, you carry the blood of the first moon priestess. The moon priestess? A bloodline lost for 1,000 years, Huxley said, his voice trembling. Only a woman with this blood can naturally and safely conceive a female werewolf. You are the only one who can truly be queen. I stared at him in shock. Are you sure? Our pack has guarded the ancient prophecy for generations, he said, taking my hand. The moon priestess will return to bring new hope to the werewolf world. Ronnie, that person is you. A dead silence fell over the room. Selena's wails stopped. In their place was an eerie calm. She slowly looked down at her own withered hands, then at my flat, life-filled belly. She began to laugh, a broken, hysterical sound. The moon priestess, she mumbled. So that's how it is from the very beginning. I was just a joke. A stepping stone for you. She snapped her head up. The hatred in her eyes curdled into something else. Pure destruction. Why? She stood, stumbling backward. The baby in her arms cried out, disturbed by her frantic movements. Why were you born to be a queen, while I gave everything and got nothing but rot and shame? Her gaze swept over me, over Huxley, and finally settled on my still flat stomach. A twisted smile spread across her face. If the moon goddess is so unfair, then I will burn down everything she holds dear. Before the words had even faded, she clutched her baby and bolted from the stone house, vanishing into the night. We ignored her, swept up in a wave of joy that washed over the entire pack. Come with me. Huxley took my hand, leading me to a stone wall behind the pack's great hall. It's just a wall. He pressed his palm against a seemingly ordinary stone. Ancient runes lit up, and the wall slid open, revealing a passage leading down. Welcome to our real home. At the end of the passage was a breathtaking underground city. Crystal chandeliers hung from a ceiling hundreds of feet high, casting a soft glow. Elegant buildings were built along a subterranean river, blending advanced technology with natural plants. This wasn't a savage pack. It was an advanced civilization. You've been living here all this time? For centuries. Huxley led me across a crystal bridge. While the outside world tore itself apart, we chose seclusion. We preserved the oldest knowledge, the purest bloodline, and he pointed to a massive building in the distance. The greatest wealth. It was a vault, piled high with mountains of gold, jewels, and lost artifacts. Why? Are you telling me this? Because you are my mate, and you are the priestess we have awaited for 1,000 years. He stopped, looking at me seriously. Ronnie, all of this will be yours. I was floored by the truth. This monster pack, ridiculed by the outside world, was secretly the wealthiest and most powerful force in the werewolf world. 3 months later, at the Great Council of the Packs, I finally understood Huxley's plan. Alphas, he said, standing in the center of the council hall. I have invited you here today to announce something important. I stood beside him, wearing a magnificent robe made from the fur of a moon beast. My slightly swollen belly was visible beneath the fabric. The Luna of the Shadowclaw pack is 4 months pregnant. Whispers filled the hall. Another illusion? One alpha sneered. We just saw the Icefang pack's little trick. We will see soon enough if it's real. Huxley's voice was calm, but the power radiating from him silenced the room. But that is not what I am here to show you today. He turned to me. Ronnie, are you ready? I nodded. Huxley closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Then his body began to change. Not his usual half shift, but a complete release of raw, primal power. His body swelled, muscles exploding in size, gray-black fur covering his entire form. His golden eyes blazed brighter, radiating the authority of a king. This wasn't an alpha's shift. This was the true form of a wolf king. A primeval. A terrifying. Pressure filled the hall. Even the strongest alphas began to tremble. Do you understand now? Huxley's voice boomed like thunder. The Shadowclaws were never weak. We are the strongest bloodline, a union of the first wolves and humans. We are your ancestors. An alpha tried to argue, but he couldn't even speak under the crushing weight of Huxley's power. My mate carries the blood of the Moon Priestess, and the child she carries will be the true queen of our people. Huxley shifted back to his human form, but his authority remained. Anyone who questions her, questions the moon goddess herself. The hall was silent. Suddenly, a strange laugh echoed from a dark corner. Haha, primeval wolves? The Moon Priestess. All heads turned. A skeletal figure emerged from the shadows. Selena. She was a walking corpse. Hair gone, skin stretched like paper over her skull. Her eyes were just sunken, black pits in her face. But the thing in her arms was far more terrifying. The thing in her arms was no longer a baby. It was a twisted, squirming mass of flesh. It was covered in black scales and let out a low hissing sound. Look what I brought, Selena said, holding up a black crystal. The dark artifact at the heart of Colton's rituals. Selena. I stood up. Are you insane? That thing will kill you. Kill me. She cackled. I'm already dead. You killed me. An evil black light pulsed from the artifact, and the temperature in the hall plunged. If I can't be queen, then there will be no queen. All of you will die with me today. She raised the artifact high. The black light grew brighter. I felt the child kick restlessly in my womb. Huxley lunged for her, but it was too late. The artifact shattered, and a wave of dark power flooded the hall. Ah! A sharp pain shot through me. The baby was coming. Ronnie. Huxley spun around and rushed to my side. Behind us, Selena held the fully transformed monster and laughed madly. Go, my sweet child. Tear them apart. Take back the throne. Protect the Luna. Huxley's roar echoed through the hall. The dark energy surged forward, but the Shadowclaw warriors instantly formed a protective circle around us. They no longer hid their strength. Each one of them unleashed their pure, primeval wolf bloodline. A golden light pushed back against the encroaching darkness. Another wave of pain hit me. I gripped Huxley's hand, feeling the baby desperate to enter this world. Ronnie, hold on. He carried me to a corner of the hall where his pack members had quickly set up a makeshift birthing bed. Outside our circle, I could hear the monster's shrieks and the alpha's screams of agony. But inside the space guarded by the pack, it was quiet. Moonlight streamed down from the hall's crystal dome, bathing me in its glow. The goddess is protecting you. Old Mira the healer knelt beside me. Luna, push. I gritted my teeth, pushing with all my might. A cold, clear thought cut through the agony. No. I was reborn to claim vengeance, but I will not let my child be born into that same fear. This world of lies, this cycle of pain, it ends with me. Today, my child will be born into a world I have cleansed. It was not the pain that awakened my power. It was my will. I reached deep inside, past the fear, past the pain, and seized the ancient power humming in my blood. Moonlight streamed from the dome above, but now it answered my call. converging on me in a brilliant column of silver light. As the baby's first cry rang out, a clear, powerful sound, the crescent moon symbol on my forehead blazed into existence. After what felt like an eternity, a clear, sharp cry rang out. "It's a girl!" Myra's voice trembled with emotion. A healthy, beautiful girl. She placed the baby in my arms. Silver white hair, sapphire blue eyes, and a small face as perfect as an angel's. The first female werewolf in a century. My daughter. She's perfect. Huxley stroked the baby's cheek, his golden eyes filled with tears. Our little queen. The battle outside raged on. The creature that was once Selena's son was now a 10-foot-tall, twisted monster. Black scales, razor-sharp claws, and a gaping maw filled with teeth. It had lost all humanity. Only the instinct to kill remained. "What is that thing?" An alpha screamed as the monster's claws tore him open. "It's from Colton's dark ritual," another cried in terror. "This is the price of forcing a birth." Hearing this, Colton's face went white. "No, impossible, this has nothing to do with me," he stammered, backing away. It was that madwoman, but the monster caught his scent. A familiar one. It turned slowly, its blood-red eyes fixing on Colton. "No, don't, I'm your father." Colton fell to his knees. "I'm your father." The monster let out a piercing shriek. Then it lunged. "Ah!" Colton's scream was cut short. The monster's teeth ripped out his throat, blood gushing like a fountain. The once powerful alpha of the Icefang pack died at the hands of the monster he created. Good boy, standing by the corpse. Selena stroked the monster's blood-soaked claws. A twisted, motherly smile spread across her face. "You did so well," she said, pointing toward me. "Now go finish the real enemy." The monster followed her finger. When it saw the baby in my arms, it let out an even more furious hiss. As if the small life's very existence was an insult. It took huge strides, charging toward us. "Protect the Luna and the little queen." The warriors tried to stop it. But the monster was too strong. Corrupted by the artifact, its body had power beyond any normal werewolf. It swatted two warriors aside and kept coming. It was about to break through the final line of defense. Huxley stood up, shielding me and our child. "If you want to hurt them, you'll have to step over my dead body." But just as he braced for the attack, a soft, powerful force pushed him aside. "That won't be necessary." I stood up slowly, holding my daughter. The moonlight grew brighter. Ancient power surged through my veins. The blood of the moon priestess. It awakened the moment my daughter was born. Selena's voice was still full of venom. Her eyes burned with a mad hatred. "Tear them to pieces. Take back the throne." As the monster lunged, I felt no fear. A silver light radiated from my body, bathing the entire hall in a holy glow. "Impossible!" Selena shrieked. "How do you have that kind of power?" I looked at the twisted creature that was once an innocent child, and a wave of pity washed over me. "Because I am a mother," I said, my voice ringing with power as I stroked my daughter's cheek. "And no evil will ever touch my child." The moon symbol on my forehead glowed brighter. I could feel the ancient power flowing through me. The sacred bloodline the moon goddess had left for her priestesses. The monster was only steps away, its foul saliva dripping to the floor. I did not retreat. Instead, I took a step forward. "Enough." My voice was quiet, but it held an undeniable authority. The monster actually stopped, a flicker of confusion in its blood-red eyes. "You are not a monster," I continued. "You are a child, twisted by pain. Your mother is mad. Your father abandoned you, and you were corrupted by evil. But your soul is still pure." The monster let out a low whimper, as if responding to my words. "Shut up." Selena screamed hysterically. "Rip her apart. Kill her." But the monster no longer listened. It looked at me, and the red in its eyes began to fade. I began to chant softly in an ancient tongue. It was a purification spell known only to the moon priestesses, sacred knowledge written into my very blood. Lunis benedictio anima liberatio. The silver light grew brighter, illuminating the hall like daylight. The black scales on the monster began to fall away, revealing normal skin underneath. Its twisted body began to straighten, its horrifying face returning to that of a child. No, no, my power. Selena backed away in terror. The artifact in her hand began to turn on her, black energy crawling up her arm. This is impossible. That's my child. My weapon. He was never a weapon, I said calmly. He was an innocent life, ruined by your greed and hatred. The purification spell reached its peak. With a final burst of silver light, the monster dissolved. A beautiful baby boy lay peacefully on the floor in its place. But his life force was spent. The dark magic had been burned away, but it had taken him with it. He could only leave this world in his purest form. The infant looked at me, a contented smile on his face, and then closed his eyes. His body dissolved into motes of starlight that drifted toward the sky. No, my child. Selena fell to her knees, reaching for the fading lights. But it was too late. The artifact's backlash had reached her heart. Black veins spread under her pale skin as her life force drained away. Why is it always you? She looked up, her eyes hollow with resentment. I was reborn, too. I should have had my chance. I walked toward her, my daughter held close, a queen surveying the ruins of her fallen rival. You want to know why? I looked down at her, my voice devoid of pity. Because you see power as something to be stolen. A weapon for destruction. I see it as something to be earned. A shield for protection. I paused, letting the truth sink in. You coveted my crown, but you never understood its weight. The throne you wanted isn't built on power, Selena. It's built on sacrifice, on love, on the will to protect. You were never, ever worthy. I hate you, her voice grew faint. Finally, her body crumbled into ash and scattered on the wind. Peace returned to the hall. Every werewolf knelt. Not in fear, but in genuine reverence. Moon Priestess, the high priest said, his voice trembling as he approached me. You have finally returned. The werewolf queen, the alphas chanted in unison. The werewolf king. They bowed to me and to Huxley. No longer the ridiculed monster pack, but the true royal family. Huxley came to my side, pulling me and our daughter into a tight embrace. We did it, he whispered in my ear. We made a peaceful world for her. I looked down at my sleeping daughter. She would grow up in a world without dark rituals, without deception, without hatred. And that was enough. 5 years later, our little princess, Arya, played in a moonlit garden. Her silver-white hair danced in the wind, her sapphire eyes sparkling with pure joy. Mama, look at the firefly I caught. She ran to me, a tiny glowing bug cupped in her hands. It's beautiful. I knelt, stroking her hair. But remember to be gentle with small lives. I know, she said, carefully releasing the firefly back into the flowers. Just like you taught me. Huxley walked up from behind, wrapping us both in his arms. My queens, he murmured, his voice a low rumble as he kissed my forehead. His molten gold eyes were filled with a tenderness I once thought impossible. Papa. Arya scrambled onto his shoulders. Tell me a story. All right, which one? The one about how Mama saved the world. Huxley and I shared a smile. The moonlight bathed the three of us in its glow. The moment was perfect, peaceful. Under the light, Huxley used his calloused, scarred wolf's hand to gently brush a stray hair from our daughter's forehead. Those molten gold eyes that once terrified me now reflected only me and our child, filled with a deep, consuming love. I used to think my fate was to be a monster, guarding secrets and gold in the dark, he said, his voice a low, sincere rumble. He lowered his head, nudging my cheek with his nose. But I was wrong. My fate wasn't to guard a treasure. It was to find mine. We are each other's treasure, I whispered, leaning against his strong, warm chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. And the guardians of this world. From the distance, we could hear the soft singing of our pack. Arya was fast asleep in Huxley's arms. I was reborn. For revenge. But at the end of all the hate, I found something stronger. A love that burned brighter than any fire. True salvation. Here, in the home once guarded by a monster, I had found my eternal peace.